Everyone's got a story, and I think it's time to tell mine. My love for baseball has seemingly always been there as far back as I can remember. Like so many others, the backyard is where it all began. I think the backyard is as crucial as the real games themselves because it's where that love for the game is born and then nourished through the early years. I had an older brother and a dad who shared their love for the game with me, and I cannot thank them enough for fostering that love as I grew up. My dad and my brother Kyle suffered through the bratty years in which I thought I was the greatest gift to the game since Pete Rose, and those wiffle ball games where arguments over ground rules and house rules broke out. They suffered through all that. It all happened in my tiny but charming backyard wiffle ball field. Through the years, I began to pick up some side interests in the game, one of those being groundskeeping. Every day of the summer, I would go outside, rake the dirt, groom it to perfection, paint the lines when we'd have games, and dream of playing an organized tournament on it someday. I would play my imaginary games there, where the Red Sox would win the World Series in 7 games on a walk-off grand slam by Jacoby Ellsbury while screaming the commentary out loud. Maybe this is where my love for broadcasting came from too. I owed all to my sandlot, my backyard field of dreams. Once the organized games came at age 5, I quickly learned that baseball was going to be a lot more than just playing the game. I made friends very quickly, which is when I realized it wasn't just all about me. There were other kids who could play ball too. In these clips you'll see here from Farm League, I played on a powerhouse squad, the 2010 Marlins from the Presque Isle Rec. We had everybody. As you can see in this clip, my dropping the shoulder problem was already in full effect. As I progressed from Farm League to my first organized Little League, I met 2 of the guys I have played baseball with the longest. I first met Dakota Morrow, aka Hermie, back in 2011. My first year in Little League, we met on Buck Farms. Usually was the basement team of the league, and we went to war together every game for 3 years. Then, in 2014, I met Ian Michaud on Buck Farms. And I find it crazy that I can still call these guys my teammates to this day, even at the age of 22. And it all started back, age 10, 11, 12, and we're still doing it. I played a lot of first base in those days, and I had an A500 first baseman's glove that was my baby. I, of course, also pitched and caught in those days as well. After all, it was Little League. Learned a lot of lessons in Mapleton Little League. From there, I started playing in more competitive tournaments when I was asked to play on the league's travel ball team. Man, I learned some valuable lessons in sports in those tournaments every year. We got to go to Little Fenway, every kid's wildest dreams if you play baseball in Maine. It's becoming more and more popular every year. They had to build a Little Wrigley a few years ago, but when I was there, it was just Little Fenway. The first time I went at age 11, it was a natural surface, and at age 13, it was a turf surface. And you could really see the tournament just explode in those years. By that time, I had found my identity as an outfielder. Dating back to the backyard, I always loved tracking fly balls. My brother and I would play, quote, outfield. That was the name of the game, outfield. Any chance we got. He'd throw a tennis ball as high as he could, and it would blend in with the green leaves of the trees, so I'd lose the ball and then have to find it again. I think this is where I really learned how to track a ball from a young age. On the travel teams, some kids had to play the outfield. I started in the infield a lot, like third base, shortstop, and eventually when people caught up to me, they thought I was of best use in center field. I quickly fell in love with the position and, the art of playing the outfield. I could see the strike zone clearly from center, and I had free roam, priority over everybody on the field. And this is where my true identity as a player was born. I had already experienced a lot of baseball by the time I was 13 after those Little League tournaments, travel ball, and all that. We played in several tournaments outside of the ordinary morning rec ball and even Little Leagues. And what I didn't realize then is that baseball games would hit a major decrease once I aged out of that. The total games played has to be over half of them before the age of 13. My last tournament came in 2014. In these clips here from a Holton tournament we played in September. It was pretty cold, but at that point I just wanted to play as much as I could at that level. In 6th grade is where the real serious ball started to happen. I tried out and made the middle school team as a 6th grader, one of just 3 that year. It felt pretty good to make it. It was kind of like a freshman making a high school varsity team. That year I didn't play much, nor did I expect to. I was still pretty young, pretty small, but it was a good year of learning how a more serious team worked, the practice environment, all of that. I had good coaching, and I learned from the older kids. Once 7th grade hit, I became the starting center fielder, and I was in 8th grade as well. Middle school ball was a breeze. It really was easy. We were a really solid team. My 7th grade year, we went 15-1, best record in the county by a long shot, and everything seemed to come easy for me. Baseball had always come easy to me. From the time I was really little up through 8th grade, I rarely had to try to be a quality player. It just came naturally, and it did just enough to get by. Then high school hit. As a freshman, I knew I wasn't ready for varsity as I was small and not athletic enough to play on the big team whatsoever. I needed a year of playing every game to get better. I did that and played on JV, played every inning of my freshman year in center field. It was what I needed. Then my sophomore year rolled around. The day after tryouts was the day I experienced my first huge baseball disappointment ever when I looked at the list of names. Ricky Gupel. I was the first one on the JV list. I was disappointed and felt my defensive skills could really help a team that was lacking outfielders. But oh well, JV it was again. Another year to play every day, play every game. I learned then that JV means you don't play as many games though. We played only around 10 or 11 that year. In a season that short, it's very hard to learn anything about yourself as a player. The year before, I had summer rec ball. That was one of the more fun seasons I had ever played. We played about 12 games throughout the summer of Pony League, won the championship. Really one of the most fun seasons. Played center field, but also played, pitched a little bit. It was really fun, and I believe I got a lot better that summer. That was after my freshman year. Going into my sophomore year, I thought that was the opportunity to make the team. So that year after JV, my sophomore year, all I had was that season. There were no summer opportunities in the county. I didn't have my license yet, and even if I did, the closest league was a 3 hours drive around Bangor. So baseball started to fade at that point in my life. Then came my junior year, the year that I learned the biggest life lesson that baseball has ever taught me. I have never gone completely public with this story. You may have heard me allude to it on a vlog from time to time, but I will try to sum up what this time period was like for me. Baseball is a game where a lot of things are out of your control. This included which team you played on. I don't know what I would have been like had I made it. I'll never forget sitting in the office, being told that I was going to be on JV again as a junior. I remember later that night sitting at my bedroom desk and crying like a little kid. After having to tell my parents I haven't cried like that since. The sport that I had always loved was not loving me back. This was another lesson I needed to learn, is that baseball doesn't owe you a thing. It's what you make of it. I played another year on JV. We played something like 8 or 9 games that year. Just so few at-bats in that short of a season. And I only had one varsity season to look forward to from there. I did gain some quality time, though, that year on JV, learning to be more of a leader. I was the junior on JV, a spot that no one wants. I was a junior on JV, a spot that no one ever wants to be, but I was still able to learn that younger players do look up to you, and they look to you for an example, and that was a responsibility. Then, of course, came 2020, my senior year. I was one of the unlucky ones to start kindergarten in the fall of '07. That meant you wouldn't have a graduation, no prom, and of course no spring sports season. COVID canceled it all, and I was left thinking that I would never be able to tell my kids that their dad played an inning of varsity ball. At any level that meant anything, would never be able to say that I did. I was bitter. I was even more angry at the whole situation than I was from the year before. I was believing that I was completely robbed of all my opportunities as far as baseball went. Again, thinking people owed it to me. My relationship with the game took a toll then. I never thought I would play again. I had no confidence. So the idea of playing for Umpy just seemed pointless. I would never be good enough to start or play often. And really my attitude was not in a good spot at that time period. 2020 came and passed, and the only playing I did then was pick up lob ball with the boys. I got a lot of fly ball reps that way, but that was pretty much it. It was more of a social event than anything. Then in 2021 came the Aroostook Men's Baseball League. My good friend and former Umpy assistant coach Frank Nunez spearheaded the formation of the AMBL, and it was then that my love for baseball was rekindled. I started playing and quickly realized that I was a lot faster and a lot stronger than the last time I played 2 years prior on JV. I was stealing bases, stealing hits by legging out ground balls, even collecting doubles. My confidence soared, and that was when I met our current trainer here at Umpy, Brian Morrison. We were teammates that first men's league year in 2021, and he was the one who planted the idea of playing for Umpy in my head. My buddy Zach Fletcher, he was my partner in crime in the men's league, and I decided to walk on to the UMPI team that fall. Met with coach. The rest was kind of history from there that we had our chance. Unfortunately for Zach, it never worked out for him to play a full season with us, but I could not have walked on to the team without him. So I thank him for that. Thank him for getting me over the hump to do that. My former coach, Roger Stinson, saw something in me and believed in me from day one. I know I had people vouching for me, and I can't thank them enough. But Coach Stinson gave me the confidence and opportunity to play. I'll never live down what that did for my life for the next few years. He truly doesn't realize the effect that he has had on me. And Coach Stinson, again, thank you. I had a solid fall ball and realized I had a chance to be an everyday player. That was a far cry to what I was in high school, and I never would have dreamed I'd be able to be an everyday starter on a college team. There was a spot open for me that first year, and I was fortunate enough to be given an opportunity to take it. That first season for UMPI in 2022 was an ever-learning experience. I started the season well at the plate, had a good Florida, was riding high, thought I had it all figured out. But then I fell off after that. It started with bad luck at Fisher the weekend after, then snowballed into so many bad habits I couldn't seem to get out of at the plate. In the outfield, I was pretty much as comfortable as ever in left field and knew I could rest easy, that I was always helping the team defensively playing left. I was able to keep the average above the Mendoza line and hit a cold 202 that year. I knew I had a lot more in me, but the consistency is what I'd have to find. In 2023, I started off worse than where I had left off the year before. I was doing the same things and expecting different results, the definition of insanity right there. There were times when I dreaded knowing my at-bat was coming up. I was doing the math in the outfield saying, man, I hope we go down in order because I just don't want to hit this inning. My average was floating somewhere in the 110s on the interstate, and I was at rock bottom. I'll admit I had to do some real self-examination midway through 2023 and ask how I was really in this spot. Did I really deserve to be playing? Was I really just this bad? Was everything else before just luck? I'd do anything for a seeing eye single up the middle. Finally, in a non-conference game at Husson, I got one, but it didn't end there. I struggled for a few more games and my average really wasn't getting any better. A piece of advice to other players that may be struggling: if your stats are available, don't look at them. Don't obsess over your average or OBP or anything like that. Just move on to the next game, get better in practice. I was caught in a trap looking every day. Finally, I broke out of the slump of my life where from the last game in Florida of 2022 to the first couple of conference games in 2023, I had gone 19 for 137. A lot of those 19 weren't real hits either. They were just my legs and my speed saving me from another out. I went 3 for 4 in a blowout loss at Thomas. Finally, was able to stay back and hit the ball harder the other way. I had 2 more hits and 3 RBIs the next game over Thomas, and what do you know, after the first conference weekend, I was 6 for 12. And this got the ball rolling for me for the rest of the year. It was just simple stuff like keeping my head down, keeping my front shoulder closed, that helped me crawl out of the pits. I had people around me supporting me, giving me tips and all that. I owe it to them as well. I finished the year at 243. Not a great average, but certainly way better than I thought I would be considering where I was earlier that year, where I was pretty much at rock bottom. This was a huge lesson for me. It's always about the next game, the next at-bat, the next pitch. That lesson in compartmentalization changed the way I approached baseball. It's how you pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and get back in that arena. The great Augie Garrido said, "Baseball fails everybody. It takes no sides. You are going to fail. Do your best. You're going to fail, so do your best again." I thank God for this opportunity to play college baseball. Not everyone gets to play this game with their best friends. I know we have many challenges at UMPI, having very few home games and traveling so much, but I don't want anyone to feel sorry for us. Baseball broke my heart in high school. I was just about done with it. I felt wronged, was angry, bitter, had no right to be, but I was. I had no desire to get back out there. But thankfully I did, and I can still play the children's game to this day.